Hello V Squad, and welcome back to another episode of VGIRLTV. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to my canal de YouTube. Before we even get into this video, if you have not subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe now. Okay, make sure you subscribe now. Anyway, guys, so by the title of this video, you already know what this video is going to be about. But you know, out of YouTube etiquette, I'm gonna let you know what this video is gonna be about. We're gonna be talking about the hardest things from my perspective. These were the hardest things that I had to get accustomed to when I actually moved to Panama. So again, I am going to put out a disclaimer. This is solely my opinions. These are based on my experiences. This is in no shape or form to try to belittle or to make anyone feel bad or to talk bad about the country, but these are the things that I had to deal with. So a lot of you who are planning to move to Panama, many of you guys you're coming from the US or maybe Canada, so you may not be accustomed to these things. I have visited a lot of Caribbean islands and experienced these things after the fact, after I started traveling. But prior to that, I had never experienced any of these things. So upon moving, these are some of the things that I kind of was just like, okay. It was shocking, to say the least, because anyone who comes to Panama, you will look at how developed the country is, and to experience some of these things is kind of like, wow, okay? So the first thing on my list is, well, you guys already know what this is because I talk about this all the time, is dealing with customer service. Panama has really bad customer service, okay? There are places, like especially if you go to tourist areas, where you will experience a really good customer service. But when it comes to having to deal with government issues or having to deal with anything that has to do with banking, anything that literally has to do with your everyday life, and it does not have anything to do with tourism, terrible customer service. So basically that was one of the things that it was hard for me to deal with. It's literally like going to the DMV on steroids, okay? So if you thought going to the DMV, well, in New York City, in Brooklyn, the DMV is atrocious, okay? So imagine that on steroids. That is what dealing with customer service is like in Panama, okay? So if you need to literally take care of anything that has to do with your day-to-day activity, whether it's your light bill, going to the light company, whether it's dealing with the cable company, whether it is dealing with banking, whether it's dealing with traffic, whatever it is, you will experience really terrible customer service, and it's really something that's really hard to deal with. Usually what I've experienced, and this is just, okay, and a disclaimer, this doesn't have to do with everyone. Another thing that it's hard for me, was one of the hardest things for me to deal with, is getting shoes in my size. People in Panama are usually really petite people. So I'm tall, I'm 5'7.5", pushing 5'8", and I wear a size 8.5, 9. I always find it very difficult to find things in my size. So whether it's extra long pants, shoes in my size, I always have a problem because my feet aren't really narrow. They are like fat. I have like Fred Flintstone feet, thanks to my dad. So finding shoes in my size is always an issue. So I always have to order outside, or I would go to malls like Multi-Plaza, and if I'm lucky, I may find something in my size. And usually if I find anything in my size, it's like stores like Zara, if I go to Aldo's, but the shoe selection isn't really as wide, so I'm kind of like limited on, you know, what I can get. So for the safe bet for me is to order everything offline and have it mailed to me. So if the shoe is super narrow, because I have Fred Flintstone feet, I would have to like push it to a size 10 sometimes, and forget about it. If you wear size 10 and 11, you're gonna have some serious problems. Yeah, so you're just better off just doing what I do, and that's like ordering offline. Another thing that I had difficulties with is traffic, okay? Traffic in Panama is like driving in Manhattan on steroids, okay? What is the problem? See, the thing is, why I say it's like driving on steroids is because in New York City, you have crazy cab drivers and you have maybe the city bus, but the city bus have their own specific lane for them to drive in, so it kind of eases up with traffic. In Panama, it's literally like a free-for-all when it comes to traffic, like especially during rush hour. It is difficult. If you put on your signals to get into a lane, the person behind you will speed up. You have to have heart to drive in Panama. I always say this: if you are able to drive in Panama, you are able to drive anywhere in the world. Because Panama, one thing Panama traffic is going to teach you is how to toughen up and to be an aggressive driver. So literally, traffic is something that that type of traffic is something that I was very shocked, okay? And it's so bad to the point that I usually only travel within certain times of the day so I don't get stuck in traffic. So literally, if it's like after 3 o'clock, don't expect me to go into the city. Don't expect me to go any place else outside of where I live, because I don't want to be stuck in traffic. I usually try to get things done very, very early. If I have to leave outside of my area to go anywhere else, I usually try to go early in the morning or right after lunch. So from like 1 to 2, that 1 to 2, maybe 2:30 time span, I try to get things done in between those times because I don't really have the patience to deal with the traffic. Another thing that I had a hard time dealing with while living in Panama were the power outages, okay? This is something that you will experience. Power outages, the light will go out randomly, okay? So if you plan to move there, make sure you have candles, lots of candles, and a flashlight, because power outages is something that happens normally on a regular basis. It happens. Okay, it just have to deal with it. Another thing is water outages. Sometimes there is no water for a certain period of time. The last time I was there wasn't water for about almost 8 hours, I will say. That is something that also happens. And again, it was something that I wasn't used to, because coming from New York, of course, you don't deal with water outages. And I mean, we had a blackout like once, okay? And that was like the craziest thing that I ever dealt with. But here, well, in Panama, it's something that happens often, very randomly. So you just always have to be prepared. Like I said, the reason why it was hard for me to deal with was because I didn't expect something like that. When you see Panama, you think, wow, this is a developing country. Well, this is a developed country, but there are things in the country that is still underdeveloped, so keep that in mind. Another thing that I found very difficult with dealing with in Panama is dealing with the law. Dealing with the law is something that is very difficult, in the sense of, I'm not saying if you get pulled over, you know, dealing with the cops. No, that's not what I'm talking about. If you are in a situation where you have to deal with legal issues, okay, that is what I'm talking about. Legal issues. If you get scammed out of money, if you are in a situation where you were scammed, or you're in a situation where you were okay, we'll just say scammed, okay, let's just say scammed, okay, and you go to the authorities, the proper authorities, that is something that is very difficult, because a lot of lawyers are also scam artists, okay? So finding people that are just genuine when it comes to dealing with the law is something that I find very hard and difficult to deal with, because you would assume that the lawyer won't try to scam you out of money also, but that is also something that, you know, you have to be aware of. I know someone personally that is dealing with a situation where they got scammed out of money, and it's been about, what, 7 years, and they've spent more money in lawyer fees than anything else. So this is something that you guys should keep in mind. Don't get me wrong, there are many of positive things that happens in Panama, and again, there are good people, okay? So I'm not talking about everyone, okay? Again, disclaimer, this is just stuff that could possibly happen and that you guys should be aware of, and situations that I've gone through or people that I personally know that have gone through, and I'm just sharing this information with you so you guys can make better judgment. Anyway guys, if you guys found this video helpful, please make sure you share it, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, and make sure you comment. As usual guys, thank you always for tuning in. Peace and love.